Good afternoon, my name is Eugene Bryce of Bryce Energy Services. I'd like to give today a short presentation on electric charging and battery storage. So when it comes to electric charging, what's the idea of requiring battery storage and how is it linked to your supply capacity? Also, I'd like to thank the over 100 now subscribers to my YouTube channel. Much appreciated. This video will obviously find itself on YouTube as well, and if you've not already subscribed, love you to subscribe and be notified of any new videos as and when they come along. So, short introduction. So you have a line of EV chargers and they look fantastic, but the question is, and the more general question for a lot of businesses is, how do we have enough electrical capacity to install electric chargers for our business, for all our staff? Now, what you'll generally see is maybe some businesses having one or two electric chargers outside their premises. Very shortly, in order to satisfy the transition to electric vehicles, every business will need a lot of EV chargers outside their business for staff and visitors and potentially delivery vehicles. So where is all this electricity going to come from? So grid capacity and electric charging. If you imagine the electric grid supplying your building, which shown as the light blue, and then your neighbors along the way. Each building would be metered, so you'd have an electricity meter probably in your basement, and you want to install a line of electric chargers. What you need to consider firstly is, what is your input capacity from the grid? This is normally in kVA, but I'll just describe it simply as kilowatts. So you have 100 kilowatts available from the grid. Similarly, your neighbor has 100 kilowatts, and perhaps your neighbor but one has 50 kilowatts. So that is your available power for your building and for your EV chargers. So imagine that your building uses 50 kilowatts, your neighbor 90, and your next but neighbor 10. So your building is using half of your capacity. Your neighbor is using 90% of their capacity. Your next neighbor is using 20% of their capacity. So what you have to consider is, well, how much capacity does each of the electric chargers require at full load? So we're imagining 22 kilowatt chargers and 3 of them, so that's 66 kilowatts. Your building requires 50 kilowatts, so you have now exceeded your capacity. Also, for your neighbor, if your neighbor installs a single EV charger, well, he's okay because he only uses 10 of 50 and he's adding another 22. So he'll be on 32 out of 50. So he has still spare capacity. What you need to think of is the variables for EV charging, which are the cost of electricity, how long a car would be parked at your EV charger, what time of day would a car be parked at your EV charger, and how much power or how much charge the EV already has. So are you charging the car from 0? Are you charging the car from 50% of its capacity? Also, on your input supply, there's obviously the cost of electricity, but also the time of day, because the cost of your electricity will vary according to the time of day. Very simply, nighttime, daytime uses, and then we get into DNO charges, triad charges. So a lot of variables into how you can charge or how can you supply EV chargers. So one proposal is to add a battery and potentially on-site generation to bridge the gap. So if you imagine in isolation that you're building on its own, we still have 100 kilowatt supply, we still have 50 kilowatt demand from the building, the factory, or premises. So we can add a battery. Now, this battery can either be charged from your incoming supply, or it can provide power to your building. But equally, it can provide power directly to the EV chargers, or you could actually sell stored electricity back to the grid. So imagine this battery is 200 kilowatt. So 200 kilowatts is a lot more than your incoming capacity, certainly more than your building demand. Now, the same variables apply to the larger battery, and just in context, 200 kilowatts is potentially 2 Teslas, maybe even 1 Tesla actually, but certainly a lot more than Nissan Leaf or one of those kind of vehicles where you may have a 30 or 35 kilowatt battery in it. So the same variables, you know, cost electricity, how much charge is in it, time of day. And what you can also do is, if your premises has the opportunity, you could work the battery together with solar power or even wind generation in order to charge that battery using directly renewable resources. And equally, you could still pass that surplus electricity back to the grid, or sell it back to the grid, use it in your own premises, or use it to charge EV vehicles. So what I've done is move along. 22 kilowatts. What I've done is prepared a simple spreadsheet to demonstrate how charging a battery releases or provides additional capacity to your business in order to facilitate higher value EV charging. So I'll just show that spreadsheet now. Okay, this is the spreadsheet with the battery storage included. So starting on the left here, we have the overall supply capacity at 50 kilowatts or 50 kVA, just assuming they're equivalent for this presentation. Battery size 250 kilowatt hours. Battery input capacity, so that's the maximum amount of power that we can deliver into the battery. Other load requirements, so that is the power from the overall supply capacity that could be required for the building or the factory or the premises. And then we have the available capacity, which is simply the difference between the battery input capacity, other load requirements, so that's 25 plus 20 is 45, 45 less 50, that gives us 5. So basically we have some spare capacity. If I drop that to 25, 0. So I'll just set it to 20. EV charger size. So what we're saying here is the charger is 44 kilowatts. I'll put it at 22 because 22 is a standard kilowatt, and I'll say there's 2 of, just return the figures back to 44 kilowatts. output limit. So I've just set an output limit if required on the chargers. So if you were tight other way, so for example, if I set that to 90, then the maximum charger output would be 39.6, and we'll just leave it at 100% for now. It's over complex it. So across here we have broken down the day into hours. So we start at 6 a.m. and go all the way to 5 a.m. Now I've set the time like this in order to make it a little bit easier for the charging of the battery later. But underneath, next row, other load demands. So 20, 20, 20, I've just set it an even load across the day. Chances are, well, the yellow, or it's yellow, the light blue highlight here is the working hours. So maybe it's more realistic if I set these down to 10. So that is effectively out of hours, in hours. So available capacity. So if our other loads are 20, without doing anything, we have a 50 kilowatt capacity. We're only drawing 20, so that leaves 30 available for other use. When we've set it to 10, it leaves 40 available for other use. Simple as that. Next row, electricity cost per kilowatt. So I'm saying at certain times a day it's 20 pence per kilowatt, and at other times 10 pence. So basically a day and night rate. Then we have the actual demand on the charger, and I've set a relatively high demand. So we're saying it's in full demand at these points in the day. Now what I'll do, I'll just take out one or two, because that is a relatively high demand right now. Normally, let's say you'd expect somebody turning up to work needing to charge their EV, perhaps a bit more in the mornings. So let's say 2 sets in the mornings. I'll drop that off, and then maybe a final car straddling the evening. So just zero some of that. So next row is what cost are we actually going to charge people for the kilowatts of the EV charger. So you can pretty much set whatever price you like. Bear in mind, those that have received a government grant for their EV charger, you may not be as free to sell the electricity from the charger, particularly to staff. Just review the terms and conditions of that particular grant. But we're assuming that you've bought the EV chargers yourselves and you're free to commercialize them, i.e. charge whoever plugs into them. So we're buying electricity as a business at 20 pence a kilowatt. Perfectly reasonable to sell at 40 pence, 45 pence. You can set your own pricing really for how much you want to charge people per kilowatt. So without a battery system, this row is the maximum current or power that can be provided to the charger. So if we remind ourselves, we are using in our factory 20, so that leaves available 30. So therefore 30 is the maximum power left available for the EV chargers without affecting the factory unit. So what we're saying here is the demand is 44 kilowatts. You only have 30 kilowatts, so therefore you're only delivering 68% of the required demand. Now, depending on the charge of the EV, how long they're going to be parked there, it may not be a problem for either you or the EV owner. Now, if it's a more commercial charge, you may want to be delivering closer within 80% of the, let's say, installed capacity of the charger, 22 kilowatts, but or sorry, in this case we're 44 kilowatts. So again, it's a technical commercial decision that you need to reach. So this is the cost of that. Something's gone slightly wrong with my figures here. Let me just move that up. And sorry about that, I should have fixed that first. So, and that should be up here. So what we're saying here is, and I'll just drag that across just to get a better sense of it. So what happened there is basically the cost without battery is simply the electricity cost times how much power is being delivered. So that's 20 pence times 30 kilowatt hours, £6. And if we're selling at 45 pence, that means that's the selling price of 13.5. So you're making 25 pence per kilowatt. So just if I change that to 0.6, 18 pounds, 0.3, £9. So 0.45. And at the end here, basically we're just summing up the cost without battery. So that's the cost to the business, and this is the selling price. So for those given charge demands, 44, 44, let me just, might be worth I'll just sum all of these just for convenience. Oops. Let's try that again. So 264 kilowatts. EV charge, so that's the demand, 264. What we could deliver was 190. And with those figures, basically just under £40 over, so maybe £47.50 profit in a day, just on these figures. So what we need to do is, because we don't have enough capacity to provide full power out, 44 kilowatts, because we only have 50 kilowatts in and we need 20 kilowatts. So what we do is we add a battery, and the first thing I have here is deciding when I want to charge that battery. So really, I only want to charge it on the cheaper rate. So if I clear that and clear that, so I'm only charging when the power costs 10 pence. And similarly up here, I'll clear some of these charge. So where there's a C, there's a charger. So what we have down here is the available power. Now in the first column here, I've just stated that by 6 a.m. the battery is fully charged. Now with the parameters I've set at the moment, you can see by 5 a.m. it's only 60% charged, so there's a problem. That should be 90% down here if it's still under charge, because what we have here is a slight problem in that we've discharged the battery so much that it hasn't come round to be ready fully for the next day. And the idea is that you want to start each day with the battery 100% if you're just using it simply for charging. So what I'll do is I'll just add another charge hour just to bring that up to appropriate level. I'll do another charge hour here. And oh, that didn't affect because it was already charging. Let me add another charge down here. And I even need another one. What I was trying to do is bring these two figures to match, and I'll explain that momentarily. So the next row here, oh, percentage EV priority. That's functionality I'll add. So basically, if I wanted, at the moment the priority is to charge any vehicles, but if I want to start topping up the battery and reducing how much charge is going into any vehicle that's maybe charging in the middle of the night, I'll set the percentages here. So battery storage 100%. This is in level of indication of the charge. So we at 6 a.m. we have 100% charge. By 7 p.m. we're down to 0. So we've completely exhausted the available battery charge. So battery level kilowatt hours. So this is simply the actual value for this percentage. So we said our battery size was 250 kilowatts. So that's what's here. So actual kilowatt hours available in the battery. Battery kilowatt supply in. So this is the charging current for the battery. So down here, when we said let's charge at these times, and that's a user variable, let's it's 25, and that comes from battery input capacity. Just like a car battery, you know, you don't have unlimited ability to charge a battery, storage battery quickly. So we've set that level at 25 kilowatt hours, or 25 kilowatts. Additional capacity use, kilowatt hours. So this is what needs to be drawn from the grid, because it can't be drawn from the battery. So here we have 30 kilowatt hours left in the battery, but where we require 44. So we have 14 to make up the 44 of the required. So that 14 kilowatts is coming directly from the grid rather than the battery to make up the difference between what's required to add up to being available to give 100% output as required. So charger output, so this row gives the total available to deliver to the charging vehicles. And what you can see here, so if you compare this row, charger output available or for demand, we're meeting 100% of the demand, whereas previously we were, whenever a car, two cars were charging at capacity, we were only at 70% of the demand. So what's good here is the battery has allowed us to deliver our customers, our EV chargers, the demand they needed without us upgrading our overall capacity. So effectively, for the short bursts of charge, we've spread the load over a much longer time. So we have 6 hours of demand, but we've spread that over 10 hours. So that means we've not created power here. we've just spread it over a longer time. So there's 264 kilowatts of power used and 264 of power delivered. So that's the advantage of a battery. It allows you to spread the load over. Also, because we're charging the battery at a cheaper time than we would otherwise have done, the costs of delivering the power is £35.30 compared to £38, so a little cheaper in the actual power, bearing in mind that that was during the day as well. We now have a cost charger if we just went off the grid rates of 52, but we are selling at 118. So if we just charged at cost, it would be 52, 118. So whereas the profit there difference was 45 pounds, here we're closer to 80 pounds, or 70 pounds. So we've increased the margin on the sales for having the battery. I suppose the big question is, how expensive is the battery? And that's another calculation. But what I wanted to show here is that by using a battery, the objective is to spread the charge. So you want to charge overnight on a cheap rate and then deliver from the battery in spurts during the day. So if I just do a little bit of variance here, and let's say I double the size of the battery to 500, what you can see here is the battery never dips too low and it recovers back again. We have what we might do is increase the size of the input capacity. Let's say it's a 35, and we're recovering the charge. Let's say we add another demand in 44. So that gives a more realistic sense of, let's say, random charging during the day or random EV charging, but you have the time to recover the charge in the battery overnight. I've bust my allowance there, so maybe I have to increase my overall capacity to 60. So yeah, available capacity 5, and slight discrepancy there I need to investigate, but the idea is the battery charge recovers from the low. So if I drop that to 400, 300. So the idea is we want to maintain from 100 to 100 to give the right, so there's enough time to recover the charge in the battery for the relative size of the supply current to the delivered current. So 60, let's drop this, 55. So here we've reached available capacity 0 because the battery capacity 35. If I drop that to 20, for example, the battery doesn't get a chance to recover the load at that stage, and we have discrepancy then between the output charge demand and the overall demand. So I'll set that back. What was it, 50? Current, leaving 20, and that's about it. So thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed that presentation. If you would like a copy of that spreadsheet, do let me know. You can email me at info@briceenergyservices.com. Visit our website, Brice Energy Services, or you can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube. Now, don't forget to like our 100+ subscribers. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for lots of other training presentations that I hope you would enjoy. So thank you very much, and have a good day.